You are now tuned in to the Storm Tracker podcast.
Welcome back to the Storm Tracker podcast. I'm Marcus Benjamin, representing for CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals.com network. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast, the Storm Tracker podcast, on all platforms. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, live from Canes County. And also subscribe to the website, CanesCounty.com, for exclusive information regarding Miami Hurricanes athletics. Joining me today, I've got Larry Blustein, longtime South Florida reporter for a Blu Monday. How you doing today, Larry?
Doing good. You know, kind of like when you face the reality of what things are, you just you look to a brighter future, and that's all you could do. After last 2 weeks ago, I wasn't as optimistic. I was extremely down because of decision making, but I think that when you face the reality of this program, I mean, you faced a top four program at their place, and you finished within a touchdown and had your chances. But I feel a lot better. I know the direction that they're headed. I know the fan base sometimes can't understand, and believe me, I sympathize with them because if you've been a Miami fan since the 80s, 90s, you know a lot about what's going on, and certainly this is a rebuild, and it's going to take time, and I know it's tough, and you got to go to every game or watch it on TV, and kind of get in a little bit of agony. But here's the thing: you're going to a bowl. You won't have to sit home, during the holidays and watch schools like Eastern Michigan and New Mexico State go while you sit home. So they'll go to a bowl, whether it be 7-5, 8-4, whatever it is, they're going. And, they'll get a good opponent, wherever they go. I saw one of them was the Mayonnaise Bowl in North Carolina, where they would play, a team from the SEC, like a Kentucky type team, which, whatever it is, because you're going to get those extra days. You're going to have recruits get an opportunity to see you in the postseason. So everything works its way out, Marcus.
Yeah, there's certainly more victories out there. I know maybe Hurricanes fans don't like to hear that, right? But I think this was a loss that you can, I guess, somewhat be proud of, as far as the circumstances. Throwing a true freshman out there in a hostile environment in the biggest rivalry for the school, and for him to perform at the level that he did, where he didn't turn the ball over, he didn't put his team in harm's way, he didn't make the many mistakes that we've seen from TVD in these past few games. It gave you a sense of, okay, well, this team is just a little bit away. They're very close to becoming elite. I mean, if you look at it this way, Blue, if Jordan Travis was the quarterback of Miami all season, this team would be undefeated.
Yeah,
this
agree.
Miami team would be undefeated if Jordan Travis was the quarterback, because you're that type of quarterback away from being elite, from being considered in the college football playoff. Because to me, that was the difference in this game. You had, a quarterback who, just, and he had an average game, is for his standards against Miami. But my point is that Miami's not that far away from being elite. That's kind of the main takeaway that I gathered, from this game, is that, Miami had average quarterback play at best in this game. Let's just be honest. Emory Williams, he threw for a horrible percentage. It was 35%, completion percentage, which is pretty bad. And a lot of the throws were just not accurate. It's not like they were terrible throws. He had some bad throws towards the end that probably should have been interceptions. But for the most part, he found the right guy. It just wasn't accurate enough. So you get an accurate quarterback, or maybe develop the guys that you have on the roster, and this team is a contender in college football.
Yeah. Well, think about this too. You go into a hostile environment against a team that's rated number 4. You start a freshman quarterback, a freshman tackle, a freshman running back, and a backup cornerback against one of the best teams in the country and still come within 7 points. And I think that's what you have to build on. And I think the recruits look at that, and I know they do because I talk to them, and are optimistic because, as you said, you're that close. You're that close from being one of those teams. You've shown it throughout the year. Miami suffers, obviously, with a depth problem, but that's what they're building for the future. Their class of 2024 is really good. They're stockpiling a couple of kids for 2025 because I think these kids, and wherever I go and any show that I might be on or podcast, they always ask me, "Oh, how do you think this Florida State Miami game is going to be, as far as recruits?" Well, I figure this, and Duke Johnson once said this: if one game is going to dictate where you end up, you probably don't belong at the school. And I agree, because remember this, when you pick a school, it's not just for the 4 years, but it's pretty much for a lifetime, because you're going to have brothers and you're going to have people who are alumni that are all over the place that when you mention, hey, I graduated from the University of Miami, doors will open for you. So
yeah,
it's a choice that you're making for a long run and not just for 1 or 2 games. And I kind of agree with Duke said, if you're making the decision based on 1 or 2 games, then maybe the school isn't for you. And that's the one thing when Coach Cristobal or whoever, when they're on campus and the kids get a chance to see, they don't preach to them about 1 game. They don't preach to, we get to play Clemson and Florida State. The deal is they have an opportunity in the offseason where you could see what happened just working the portal this last year where it got them. So imagine another year of portal and another year of this incoming class. And I think you're looking at a program, and I don't want to get too far. And that's the thing, because you and I or whoever will make, a statement like that, and then people will take it as gospel. And if they don't achieve, they blame it on, Mario Cristobal should go. Well, where's he going? Who you bringing in? You've got perhaps the best guy that they've ever had as far as a fit for the program. He's an alumnus. He has 2 degrees. He grew up here. He bleeds green and orange. He's a great recruiter. He surrounded himself with people. So to me, unlike a Texas A&M where you really didn't have the fit, you jumped the gun and then you took a guy with a name who really was an average head coach at best when he was at FSU. He had a couple good years, but that's what I'm saying. I think Miami invested in Mario Cristobal for way into the long run. So all of your harsh feelings of him winning 6, 7, 8 games, you got to put those off to the side because they're never going to hold weight. This administration, the president, the athletic director are 1,000,000,000% about him and what he's doing for the future and not just 1 year.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Cristobal's move before the game, which of course made headlines. The fact that he benched Tyler Van Dyke for Emory Williams. Now, this is something that, I am guilty of screaming that they should have done. And I was a little bit surprised, Blue, that they actually did it. But based on what happened and of course TVD's play before, do you feel it was the right move for Miami?
Well, you and I sat at the last home game, and at halftime I said to you, Marcus, this is embarrassing. You got a quarterback out there that doesn't seem like he wants to be there. He has no leadership qualities. He's got no energy. So to me, that move was a great move, because you're going to lose with a junior who has no confidence in himself and is slowly losing the offense because he wasn't making plays. He wasn't hitting open receivers. He wasn't making the right throws over a guy who is young, who could be the future of your team. So to me, you lose with a guy that you're building with rather than a guy who's not giving you much with all of his experience. So, no, I had heard earlier in the week that both were getting reps. And then I said, well, you know what? He probably will go into the game with DVD, and if he doesn't do anything, he'll yank his ass real quick. And
that's what I thought too.
Yeah, and make the move, because who's going to – here's my thing. If he made the move and people start, why did he – well, you know why he made the move, because there was no productivity from the quarterback position. So I think Miami and Cristobal was in a win-win situation as far as whatever quarterback he picked, because he was going to go with somebody that he had a feeling that gave them the best chance to win. And for basically all 4 quarters, Miami was right there, 10-10, 17-7. To me, and you don't lose sight of the fact that you are facing one of the best teams in the country and on their turf. So for Miami to go into Tallahassee doing what they did with those young kids, and I don't think people realize that a freshman quarterback, a freshman running back, and a freshman offensive tackle? Come on. That's a lot to ask.
Defensive end as well.
Right. So, to me, Miami grows from this. They come home. They play Louisville. Louisville's a very good team. So it's not that you're just going to all of a sudden snap your finger. Oh, well, we're home now. We're going to win. And the same thing with Boston College. Listen, they beat Georgia Tech earlier in the year. They held Florida State in the same manner as Miami did. So you got 2 tough games left. I just say, keep your development going. And, whatever happens, just hit the offseason with a positive attitude. Win, lose, or draw. And I think your fan base will be really optimistic about who's coming in early, what the spring is going to look like. And I think you're progressing. You're definitely progressing as a team. Last year, you relied on too many guys that wouldn't be here into the future. And but that's not the same this year. I think a major portion of this roster stays intact.
Yeah, I agree. And these next 2 games are really going to tell you just how much Cristobal has a hold of this locker room and how solidified is this culture that he is, establishing at Miami. Because, after a game like that, even though they played well enough to put themselves in a position to win the game in the final minute of the game, it's still a loss, and it's still a loss against your rival. And, you look at that game at the beginning of the year, and if Miami could win one game, they would want to win that one against Florida State, regardless of what their record was. So now they go into these 2 games here against Louisville and Boston College. And I think, Blue, that these 2 games are going to be just as tough, because you didn't have to really get up emotionally for Florida State, because it's Florida State. You're automatically going to be emotionally high for this game. Adrenaline's going to be pumping. Now you come back home, you've already made a bowl game. You don't have a shot at the AC championship game. So it's going to be extremely tough, especially with Louisville fighting for playoff contention themselves. They are looking to, they're in position right now to go into the ACC championship game, but they still need to win this one because North Carolina's right on their tail. So now they go into a game where, of course, Emory Williams got hurt in that final drive and is out, for the season because, now he's having surgery on his arm. My heart goes out to the kid, put his body out on the line on a critical 4th down play, made the 4th down. But now Cristobal has another decision to make here. Does he go back to TVD or does he start Jacurri Brown? I think Jacurri Brown should get a shot. What about you? What do you think?
Well, we gave him a shot last year, came through against Georgia Tech. Obviously, you have to use this as a 2-quarterback situation. The experience of Tyler Van Dyke, but thing to me is he tries to do too much. And Miami certainly can't, can't put, I think what Jacurri Brown adds to this enthusiasm, athleticism, and a will to prove everybody that he belongs to be the quarterback. So if he starts, I think you're going to get the very best out of him. I think that you look back at the FSU game, and Emory had time. The offensive line has done a crazy good job this year. And I think if you remember last year, whenever Emory got in there, that offensive line really wasn't that good, and the defense was on him. So if he gets that extra step, from whether it be a running situation or a passing situation, I think that he has a better chance to win this game against Louisville than Tyler Van Dyke does. And listen, nothing against the guy. He just is not what Miami needs. It's just the way it is. I mean, he did a great job a couple of years ago. He got hurt, and he was functional, more than functional, and then all of a sudden things went south. So I would definitely start Jacurri the last 2 games of the season into the bowl game. You got 3 games where he could really get a lot of experience, under his belt against teams that are not FSU and that are not Clemson. And that's the one thing people forget under Emory Williams. They beat Clemson, and Clemson's a pretty good team, still. So, yeah, I would start Jacurri Brown, and I think that whoever would bitch and moan, what are you bitch and moaning for? The other guy doesn't give you any options at all. So why not put somebody in who has started before and has played, and I think he adds a different dimension to this offense, which needs it now.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head for me at the end there, is that he adds a different dimension to this offense. Can you imagine if you have a Jacurri Brown and maybe a Brashard Smith and a Mark Fletcher, all 3 in the background? I mean, that's pretty tough to stop if Miami uses that type of zone read power running game with those 3 athletes in the backfield. So, and then the other part is that you don't burn his red shirt.
Yeah.
You don't burn his red shirt if you play him for these last 3 games, because he is. I think he will be back next season. I mean, of course, all of these quarterbacks, I guess, have a decision, quote unquote, to make with the transfer portal.
Sure.
Now playing a factor here. But I think it would be in his best interest to stay, another year, because he doesn't burn, the red shirt. And, he adds a different dynamic to this offense. And, it's something that Louisville won't be ready for. I mean, there is some tape on him. Obviously, he did play in a few games last season, made 2 starts, but you haven't seen him this season. So I think adding that wrinkle to the offense will kind of throw Louisville a little bit off kilter there. But what do you want to see again with Miami against Louisville? Final home game of the season. So, the seniors, it's senior day for the Hurricanes. Miami doesn't have a ton of seniors on this team. A lot of this team, like you mentioned earlier, is coming back. But overall, kind of what do you want to see from this team against Louisville on Saturday at Hard Rock?
Let's see energy. I want them to come out and play as hard as they can. As we said, here's a Louisville team that is beating Notre Dame, beating some pretty good programs, and they're going to come in, as you said, amped up. They have 5 or 6 kids from the state of Florida, a couple of South Florida kids that are going to want to come back and show, hey, listen, if they weren't recruited by Miami, they should have been. But I think you block that out and you just go out there and play your game, and hopefully that your offense will make some plays so the defense isn't stretched. And you look at like a Wesley Bassint, or some of the or Mawanoa, who listen. Mawanoa might be one of the best, if not one of the best tackler in the country. So
Yeah.
you were handed a gift. So Miami's defense is really two parts of this game that have really added to the 2023 season are the offensive line. You can't say anything negative about this offensive line. They have come every single week to play. The addition of Lee, the addition of Cohen, the maturity of some of the other players that returned from last year have added up to something special. And that's what I think is really good. And then this defense. What can you say bad about a defense that is just, they're thin at a lot of places, but you have a true freshman in Bain who has just set the freaking country on its ears. Because of the way he's played 7 sacks, always in every play, the Saint, Mawanoa, the secondary, which has really probably gotten a lot of bad raps early on in the year for some of some of the passes they let up, but things have kind of gotten a lot better. You know, and I think this defense really should be applauded. Coach Guidry has just come in and put his thumbprint on this defense. Aggressive. You could see the plays. You could see the adjustments. This is something that hasn't been in the past. Now, offensively, Coach Dawson's got to kind of prove himself. So, you know, I mean, his play calling is kind of mind-boggling sometimes. And I'll never back off, no matter what any of those coaches say. Miami runs 5 plays, Marcus. 5 plays. What the heck is that? You know, I mean, it's mind-boggling. I mean, the bubble, the run tackle to tackle, you know, the upfield pass, no tight end involvement. That to me really, because if you look back to his time at Houston or wherever he's been, the tight end has always been vital. Miami's tight ends have been transparently disappearing. And I think that you don't use all the weapons that you have. And and then it's going to come back to like Coach Cristobal saying, well, we're not trying to sabotage and we're not trying to not win. Yeah, but you know what? When you look at the team, just from a layman's standpoint, forget about not being a coordinator or being a football coach. The average fan is not stupid. You know, they've been around. They're watching teams like Oregon. They're watching teams like Washington and explosive offenses that are doing so many different things. And, yeah, I think that's going to be the difference in the Louisville game and the Boston College game. Let's show a little bit more imagination on the offensive side of the ball because we already know the defense is coming to play. And there's no two ways about it. The defense is coming to play.
Yeah, I think the offense is limited to the quarterback play, though. I think Dawson really didn't fully trust Tyler Van Dyke, and I think he doesn't fully trust Emory Williams yet because he's, a true freshman who was just playing high school ball last season. And I think last year he had a veteran quarterback in Clayton Tune who actually started last week for the Arizona Cardinals.
Right.
So I think he had, experience so he can unleash everything in his playbook. So I don't put it all on Dawson. I think he's just playing somewhat conservative given the quarterback play that he has right now. But, with these next couple of games, he should be able to kind of open things up if, Jacurri Brown does indeed start the game. So hopefully we see a little bit more run option or run pass option with Jacurri Brown. So I don't put it all on Shannon Dawson. I think he's just limited with the quarterback play that he is kind of been dealt here. It's disappointing because we thought Tyler Van Dyke was going to take his game to the next level, and it's been anything but that. But I totally agree with you about the defense. The defense has been putting Miami in position to win games all year. And Coach Lance Guidry has just been nothing short of outstanding with his play calling, just dialing up blitzes at the right time, especially in this game as well against Florida State. I think he was brilliant in as far as limiting what they could do. Now they did hit some big plays. Obviously, they got some great players over there at Florida State, but for them to kind of limit a Keon Coleman to 24 yards receiving with a freshman cornerback and Jacurri Brown covering him most of the time, it is really commendable. And this defense, most of it does come back, but you are likely going to lose Cam Kinchins. You're likely going to lose James Williams and a Leonard Taylor, and some of the veterans on this defensive line, like a Harrison Hunt and Thomas Gore and a Lichtenstein, who has played so many years. So those are some of the pieces that you might lose, but you still got plenty of guys coming back that you could develop. The recruiting classes continue to develop. So I think this defense is pretty much kind of here to stay, especially if they, do well in the transfer portal again, as they did last year. So we'll see what happens on Saturday. Of course, you and I will be there at Hard Rock Stadium to see the final home game of the season. But wanted to talk to you about high school football, Blue, because it's that time of the year where, we kind of went through the playoff bye week, I guess, so to speak. Now the real matchups kind of start here. What are some of the matchups that are intriguing to you that kind of involve some Miami targets and maybe some commits going into, the second round of the Florida State playoffs?
Well, Booker T Central jumps off the page a little bit. So does Palmetto and Western as far as that's concerned. Obviously, the Chaminade gets underway against Avant-Garde, so it shouldn't be really a pushback type of game. There's a lot of games, you take a look at Columbus, which has a Miami commitment starting at defensive tackle. We'll get an opportunity to play a South Dade team that's pretty feisty, a program like that. You take a look at St. Thomas Aquinas, with a potential. Well, they have for sure two commits to Miami, but there's a third one that may be coming soon, and the kid Nicholas Rodriguez, from what I understand, and Frank Tucker, who does a great job for you guys, has been on top of that, in that situation. I think that you're going to see a couple of other teams that are going to showcase younger kids like Monarch, with the kid Brady, and potential Miami targets down the road. So I think you got a really, good second round coming up. As far as some of the targets are, a lot of the other players, as I did a look at some of the Miami commitments for next year, they finished their seasons, whether it be in season or not. So I'm excited about Miami's recruiting class. Some of the kids are getting a lot of publicity, but there are a lot of targets that are going to get this second, third, maybe even state championship looks, and may be right in Miami's wheelhouse. So I'm excited for that as well. Miami Norland has a lot of kids. Maybe Miami could flip one of those players, because certainly they're local teams. Miami's got good ties, probably the best relations they've had in a long time with the local schools. Mario's visible. That night that Chaminade played American Heritage, he was there the whole game. He and Kevin Beard. So I think this is he really immerses himself into this whole deal, and he's one of those guys that would love to go out in the spring. The NCAA still has that crazy rule where the head coaches can't come out during the spring, to the games and such. But I just think, right from a recruiting standpoint, you have a lot of coaches, and this is something that didn't happen in the last two administrations. is that they buy in to what Coach Cristobal is doing. And he's not bigger than the program. Like these other coaches felt like, I'll show up for 5 minutes and that's it. He sells it, and that's why he's such a great recruiter. So I think there's a lot of good things happening over the next couple, week up right into the state championships, second week of December in Tallahassee, where I'm sure, there's going to be a lot of kids from all those schools that may consider Miami as well.
Yeah. What will be interesting to see is if Miami can, put together another top 10 class, add maybe a couple of more pieces to this class. You mentioned St. Thomas Aquinas. They've got 3 guys already committed, and OJ Frederick and Ryan Mack and Chance Robinson. And a lot of talk about maybe Jordan Lyle joining the class, as well as a Nick Rodriguez. If they can continue to establish a pipeline from arguably one of the best programs in the entire country, from St. Thomas Aquinas, as well as others, then I do like their chances.
And they got the 2 kids from Chaminade, obviously, that are really good too. I mean, the Chaminade kids are really good. I think that Zaquan Patterson may be he'll be like Cam Kinchins. He's going to be that type of guy. So you replace one of these younger, one of these veteran guys with somebody with that type of potential. We all know what, that they remain steady in trying to get Jeremiah Smith, but obviously that's, a lot of people are on him, but you can't say enough. They recruit really well. They have dudes that could recruit, and that's the thing that they haven't had in the past. Forget Mario, but you have Kevin Beard, who the receivers love. You have Timmy Harris, who obviously the running back room has fallen in love with for good reason, because he's a hard worker. Jason Taylor, who I think is one of the great deal sealers in college football today, because of the fact that while a lot of the kids may not have watched him, their parents had. And they go, hey, wait a minute, if you got a chance to play for him, what are we talking about? And his track record of turning kids around, he's got arguably a top 5 pick in Dallas Turner coming up that he worked with for the year at St. Thomas. Nicholas Benito, who's in the NFL now. So, and look at his son as a tight end at LSU. So I think somebody like that has gone a long way. And then Coach Nicholson is another one that's way, way under the radar. He's a dude, he knows people, gets along with people. So from a coaching standpoint, and Coach Mirabal, he's an energetic guy who knows the offensive line position as well as anybody in the country. So unlike last year, when I wasn't as confident about the assistant coaches, they come into the 2024 season with some really, really good teachers, good recruiters, and guys that are generally really good people too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this coaching staff, this is kind of the time of the year where coaches kind of, look around, but I with this staff, I don't see that. I feel like this entire staff is going to stay intact, I think the recruiting momentum continues because of that. And of course, because of Mario Cristobal, who of course excels in recruiting. That's Larry Blustein. Larry, ladies and gentlemen, kind enough to join me today on a Blu Monday. Thank you, Larry, for joining me, and hopefully, we'll see you again soon. Of course, we'll see each other again Saturday at Hard Rock.
Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. That's going to wrap it up for the Storm Tracker podcast. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on all platforms. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share as well. And also subscribe to the website, canescounty.com. Use the promo code Miami30 for the first 30 days for free. Part of the Rivals Network. Until the next episode.